Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. We are just about ready to go land on the moon. So, we are looking at our contracts to make sure that we've got what we want. All right, good. Good. That all looks adequate. So, we're at the point now where we have enough technology to credibly pull off a bunch of different types of moon landings. And I've been thinking between episodes on like how I want to go about it. My normal preferred method at this level in the tech tree is to do a Kerbal orbit rendezvous and have two craft meet up in orbit around Kerbal, dock up, and one of them will have a transstage attached that boosts the whole stack out to rendezvous with the moon. However, that's very risky in a career mode where I'm not going to be doing any like revert to launch, F5, F7, or F5, F9 type of stuff to account for mistakes. And I'm really worried that if I go with that normal method, I'm going to get myself into some serious trouble. So instead, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to launch a direct descent lander. However, instead of coming all the way back to Kerbal, it's going to rendezvous with an empty return capsule in space around the moon. So, we're going to start off, and we're going to call our moon missions, we'll call it Magnus. Alright, so let's build... Oops. Now this is going to look a little bit better, don't worry. There we go. That looks much better. Alright, so now underneath, first thing I'm going to want to do is get a little bit of monopropellant. Good. Good. Now this should have, on its own, a fairly large amount of delta V. So what we're going to do is, now we're going to ruin that by adding all kinds of stuff. Alright, first things first, we're going to want to make sure we put one of these, and one of these. Except the Kerbal Engineer can go inside. The others will stay where they are. Alright, so now I'm going to want to put a goo module. And over here, Okay, we're going to do our science collection. And over on this side, we're going to do a cargo module. And that'll provide a nice little bit of symmetry. So inside the cargo module, we have 3 spaces. What do we want to bring with us? Well, a photovoltaic panel. Solar panel is always good. Control station's good. Problem is we're not going to have a lot of power, but that's fine. And we'll do a goo experiment because we can. Now in here, we're going to ditch that. We're going to bring another solar panel. Alright, that's that might end up being a little bit of an issue. Because we don't have the technology for, we don't have the technology yet for a ladder. So that might be a problem. But we'll see what happens when we get there. I mean, it's not the surface science experiment is not a critical component of this mission. It's a fun, is nice but not mandatory element of it. The main thing is going to be to complete our contracts and everything for planting the flag, landing on the moon, all that good stuff. Alright, we also need communications. So we're going to do some of that. There we go. That looks good. Okay, are we missing anything? Yes, we are. We are missing lights. Okay, that works. And now we'll do... Good. Okay. That looks to be a fairly decent lander. However, I'm also going to want to throw in some extra RCS just for good measure. Alright, so we're going to start those retracted. And then that's fairly compact. I like this. This is a good design. I've used similar designs in the past. And I think that'll work out pretty well. So now, we need to have a descent stage and a landing stage. Or, I'm sorry, a descent stage and a trans stage. So for starters, we'll do some good struts. Because you always need lots of struts. Better safe than sorry, and having too many struts than not enough struts. You know, everyone says the mantra in Kerbal Space Program is more boosters. I disagree. The mantra is more struts. Okay, that is going to be our descent stage. So we need to get this package to orbit around the moon. Now, and again, I'm going to do some more struts, just for good measure. Now, this is where things can get a little crazy. All right, I'm going to use a skipper. All right, hopefully that should function as, I hope, enough of a trans stage, but just to be sure, yeah, this is quickly going to get a little crazy. All right, what do I have for... There we go. Oh, good. I didn't realize I had that tank yet. All right. That'll make things a little easier. So that'll be... Well, I don't need to go too crazy on the staging, so I can afford to do this for a first stage. And that'll be boosted, of course. Well, all right, first things first. We're going to want to put some good aerodynamic control surfaces on here. Okay. Now, we'll start thinking about our lateral boosters. Because we have to get this mess high enough up where that skipper engine, which is the best I can do at the moment, is going to provide enough delta V. Well, is it? Let's see. No, it is not. For Reliance. Yeah, that's not the best I can do. The best I can do would be something like this. Yeah. And to be clear, this is a mess. But that's fine. But what I'm going to do first, I'm going to make sure that the fuel bleeds correctly. And this isn't going to go anywhere. I'm going to need the... Oh. No, actually, okay, it is. That wasn't expected. But the fuel is draining correctly. So that's good news. But our next step is going to be some solid boosters to help out. Alright, these might be overkill. That's what I was looking for. And we're over mass. Alright, I think we have to upgrade our launch pad for that, which is not a huge surprise. And I'll verify that we can do that before I proceed any further. And I'm going to need to do that eventually. Yeah. It takes a lot, but it was worth it. Because I tend, once I get, like, sort of into the mid-game, I tend to overbuild my rockets quite a bit. And, the mass can quickly balloon as a result of that. Alright. Oh, whoops. Forgot my symmetry on that strut. Ah! Okay. Now... Alright, let's get some launch clamps going. So that is actually kind of important. Okay. We have a moon rocket. Now, I know that a lot of people who play KSP, maybe even you, tend to try and be a lot more careful and precise calculating your delta V and all that good stuff. I don't. I'm sloppy. That's fine. I have a lot more fun just sort of guesstimating. And, sometimes crew members get stranded places. That happens. That's half the fun in Kerbal Space Program. Is the certain knowledge that sooner or later one of your missions is not going to make it. Alright, so let's line ourselves up. Whoa, whoa, oh. A little too far. Good. F5 for safety, because we will be time warping. And up we go. And with luck, this should have enough delta V for the one-way trip up to the moon. Not bad, not bad. Solid booster separation coming up shortly. And they lasted me just about to the edge of the atmosphere. Good separation. That that first stage there ended up working pretty well. I like doing cluster designs like that. You know, to accommodate for having a larger diameter tank and not a large enough diameter engine that's strong enough. I just cluster a whole bunch of the smaller engines. You know, like the N1, and we all know absolutely nothing went wrong with that. All right, so now we're flying up towards the moon, and this was intended to be our trans stage, and it looks like it's going to work. Good, good. And I'm going to see about getting this into a stable orbit around the moon. Then I'm going to launch an empty return capsule. I'm going to take the Akatosh design that we used earlier and send it up here with a probe core instead of a Kerbal, and that will be Jebediah's ticket home. The idea being that we will land this thing down on the moon on a one-way trip, and then return to orbit around the moon. Ditch this in lunar orbit and use the empty Akatosh as our return and landing capsule. So it's not super efficient in that, you know, we're using multiple launches. However, it provides a relatively high margin of safety. And we don't even need any of that science stuff. That's a problem. The probe core... Probe core's wider than I would like. So it's going to force a minor redesign. Our whole top apparatus is going to have to get redone. And we're calling this Akatosh PR because as a probe core, and it is intended as a return vessel. Okay. Now the only thing I am going to want to do is I'm going to actually put a crew member in this just to test and make sure that that probe core is not blocking the hatch. Because that would be a problem. You know, I may or may not actually do the docking in orbit around the moon? Okay, good. So I may or may not actually do the docking. I may just do a rendezvous and then have a leap of faith and send Jebediah out on a little bit of an EVA. Okay. And you know what else I'm going to do, just for good measure? Just to have a little bit of extra controllability once we get there, in case we need it. And of course, it helps that in our previous missions, we set up the relay network and we got ourselves into a good position where we have like relay satellites around the moon and everything. So that when we want to do something like this, we can, without a whole lot of fuss. And again, this booster has a tremendous amount of delta V and acceleration for a payload this light. So this should have absolutely no problem getting our empty Akatosh return capsule to orbit around the moon. That's a problem. That's a problem. So we're going to have to scrub that one. And we live and we learn there. I'm going to want to put some Separatrons on those side boosters to make that process a little bit more clean. Hey, but this way, you know what? We'll just call that we'll call that a recovery test, testing our parachutes out. That's all that was. No big deal. That was our live abort test. Yeah, we'll just go back to vehicle assembly. All right. So, having learned from that, we're going to do basically what we did before and just provide a little extra motivation for these boosters to just get out of the way when we separate our stage. All right, that should be much better. Make sure we are empty on crew, and we will launch. Having learned lessons from our ascent abort test there. See, that's why you always wanna test your designs and all that good stuff. All right, here we go. All right, try that again. So, as we were saying, our OTAR booster here really does have a fairly significant amount of delta V when boosting a light payload like this. So this really ought to have no trouble getting us to orbit around the moon and providing Jebediah with a way home. And I find that, doing a mission like this for the first moon landing and using 2 launches, whether it's Kerbal Orbit Rendezvous, yeah, much better, or some ridiculous mission like this where we're doing sending a lifeboat home, a lifeboat home up. It tends to make the first moon landing a little easier when we're at the point in the tech tree where we have the tools we need, but we don't have large diameter tanks, fairings, and engine mounts. So we're forced to use... Oh, crud, I forgot Kerbal Engineer module. That's going to be a problem. But it forces us to use, smaller diameter rocket parts and to get a little creative with them. And that's totally okay. It's just a little extra work. Alright, so this should be able to get us into orbit around the moon. I hope. Maybe? Huh. That's, it's taking a bit more fuel than I anticipated. I seem to remember in our last mission where we did our lunar flyby, we had a little bit more delta V, but that may also just have been a better ascent profile, because it really can make a huge difference. Alright, so that is an orbit around the moon. And it's a high orbit, but the good news is, when it comes time to do the rendezvous after we land, we can just adjust that. That's not going to be a huge deal. What is going to be more of a thing is trying to land at the memorial. And we're still on... Okay, we've still got a fair amount of beef left. Oh yeah, look at that. This should do just fine. Oh yeah. Yeah, we've got more than enough power here. That's actually really good. So this ended up getting somewhat overbuilt, which isn't a bad thing. Yeah, and we have a pretty good thrust to weight ratio with that skipper engine, so we're going to slow down relatively quick. Yeah, that was good. Because what we're going for is, I think it's right about there. So we have to cancel out a whole bunch of delta V. Alright, little too far. That's fine, we'll just tumble it. Alright, we had our inclination correct. Yeah, I think we saw it right down there. Yep. Good, good. Alright, so now we're going to get ready for our final descent. Yeah, this half of the mission is working quite well. Realizing I just jinxed it pretty bad by saying that. Whoops. Alright, so we're going to use our last little bit of delta V. And we can do a pretty smooth landing just on monopropellant. Oh, excellent. Excellent. That worked out very well. Alright, so we'll observe our mystery goo. We'll do our material study. And we'll close the door. Collect all of our science here. And good. Alright. Now, Jebediah, time to do your thing. We'll see if I can reach afterwards. Alright, fine. It's It's going to make me do it the hard way. Whoop. We'll do our little musical chairs game. And get our little goo experiment going. Okay. And can I? I can. Alright, so that'll... Haha, that worked well. Alright, and we've got our second little solar thingy. And I believe that should... Okay. Alright, good, good. So now... And we're just going to go get... Whoa, 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 whoa. Just going to go get credit for discovering the monument. Oh, there's part of our descent stage. Survived impact. We have left trash on the moon. Alright, so we're going to plant our flag. What are we, in the northwest crater? First landing on the moon! Alright, we're going to take our surface sample. EVA report. Whoop. And before I forget, we're going to want to take all of that data out of our science container. Okay. Oh, you know what else I want to do? Because going for a jump counts as an EVA in low space. So that's fun. Alright, so now is the hard part. Now we actually have to do our rendezvous. And hope for the best. Now this lander should have a fair amount of delta V. So I'm going to get my apoapsis up to about like 80,000, then circularize the orbit and see where we're at. Alright, how are we doing? Okay, not bad. so let's see if we can get this lander up into the crazy orbit of our Akatosh capsule. And... okay, good. They're both still on a relative equatorial plane. So that's good. And I'll worry about the actual rendezvous in a minute. I just want to kind of equalize their orbits. And we may spend a fair amount of time in orbit around the moon, waiting for these orbits to properly align. And I'm totally okay with that. Not bad. Not bad. Alright, so now that we're nice and close, we will slow down and cancel out as much of our relative velocity as possible. Alright, now where is... there it is. So this is going to get us pretty close. And our relative velocity is really low. So this will actually be a fairly easy rendezvous. And if I dock, if I can pull off the docking, I might even be able to use some of the lander's leftover fuel to help with our trajectory to get back home. Not that it's necessarily needed, but, you know, it's nice. And we're just time warping a little bit. Kind of speed this up. You know, this is a slow process, and that's okay. Alright, so now where is... there it is. Good, good. That's working out quite well. Awesome. All right, so now Jebediah is going to take all of our glorious science, do an extra spacewalk just because we can, transfer over. All right. So now, in order to... I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time and get the moon aligned a little differently. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, so let me check this. Alright, that's what I thought. We're backwards, which is okay. So burning like this will get us into a good trajectory for landing. And we may actually be able to throw our lander onto a collision trajectory, which would be very good. Because I like to not have... I think I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, I try not to have the landers or like leftover stuff get gravity assisted out of Kerbin's sphere of influence when I can avoid it. Alright, not quite, but that's fine. Alright, so now... just to sort of, to force that point, I'm going to make a little bit of an engine burn just to reduce the apoapsis of the empty Magnus 1 lander. And I'm just pulling the apoapsis down a bit so that when we detach, if we have to, you know, it's not going to be floating out, intersecting the moon's sphere of influence and getting gravity assisted out of Kerbin. But I'm looking at the fuel here, and I may actually have enough delta V, even with that extra weight, to just lower the orbiter's, lower the lander's orbit far enough and just bring it right down with me. Perfect. Alright, so that is going to go and crash. Do we need anything else from it? We'll just do some science data from space around Kerbin, just because we can. I think we had a contract for that. We will undock. Whoop. And say, Magnus 1 lander, we barely knew ye. Now, we're going to raise our orbit a little bit. Going for that trajectory, the periapsis of right around 30,000. Good. Alright, that mission has gone surprisingly smooth so far. So let's hope nothing randomly explodes at the last second. We've got Jebediah. We remembered to bring our science. Yes, we did. Okay. And just for good measure, we're going to get some extra science from up here. Yeah, and we can see our lander there going for an impact trajectory, and that is okay. Whoop. We'll just burn the rest of our fuel here in a little bit of a deceleration burn. Okay. Looking good so far. Not bad, not bad. That worked out quite well. And where are we? Oh, we're off in the western continent there. That's okay. Just in case our parachutes break on time warp, which they occasionally still happens. Not too often, but it happens enough that I try to, prepare for it. Grasslands. All right, that's fine. And we are almost back from our first landing on the moon. Bloop. Okay. And I don't know if Jebediah has a surface sample. Yep, he didn't, so that was good to get. And I'm sure that felt good to set foot back on solid Kerbal ground. And let's recover and see what we get for rewards. Hopefully that'll be significant, because we completed not only a bunch of contracts, but that'll get us a whole bunch of the milestone achievements. Oh, look, okay, and we got a whole ton of science. Oh, yeah. All right, we recovered some parts. That was good. And Jebediah got a bunch of experience and reputation. So let's see what we got here. All right, that was good. Lots of money. Look at that. We're up over 1 million. Oh, we're rolling 7 digits deep. Okay. That was good. That was an extremely good, productive mission. So let's think about what our next steps are going to be. We have enough for what? Yeah, all right. So I think this is going to be a logical one to get for a couple of these engine parts, especially the mainsail. The mainsail engine ends up being a really fundamental component of the mid-game. Oh, excuse me. Of the mid-game in Kerbal Space Program. So I'm going to grab that. We have enough for 2 more. Now, I'm at the point now where I want to start thinking about direct descent landing missions. And getting the 2.5 meter fairing is going to help quite a bit. Also, the Clampetron and these cargo bays, these are custom parts that I've added in. Most of the rest of this isn't going to be super important, but the engine plate, the fairing, and the cargo bays are. So I'm going to grab that. And for the last one, let's take a look. Yeah, those landing struts are looking good. However, the advanced reaction wheel is also good. The cupola module, not yet. I use that for landers actually pretty frequently, just because it looks nice. The lander can is fine. The Mark 1-3 command pod, we don't need that yet because we still haven't even launched. We still haven't even launched our Mark 2. Advanced exploration. So here we're getting ladders, and the mobile processing lab. So I'm thinking this is probably going to be the important one. And with our next batch of science, these solar panels are going to be where it's at. So not bad for that. Now let's take a look at our contracts. We did not actually complete our Muna 4 contract, which is to do an automated sample return mission where we land a bunch of science and return it into the experimental storage unit and then bring it back to Kerbal for a landing. So I'm going to do one of those. Not right now. That'll be in the next episode. I'm going to do one of those. What's this? Oh, docking around Kerbal. And then we'll get started on the rest of the moon exploration proper. Because the science that I get from doing that sample return mission really ought to be enough to get the advanced solar panels and the larger battery. So that's going to be really important going forward. And then we're going to start looking at some 2 crewed launches. So that's a good thing. But for right now, I think that is going to about close out. Didn't quite take as long as I expected, but overall, not a bad mission. So we're going to call that an episode. And as always, thanks for watching.